Hello, everyone, and thanks for hanging out with us for the Behind the Numbers weekly listen and eMarketer podcast. This is the Friday show that doesn't know why it came into the office. Do you guys find when you go in, we just had this, people are like, what are you doing? It's the only place where people are surprised to see you. You'd be mortified if you went home and your partner was like, what are you doing here?
I'm just not in enough for that to really... I feel like I announce when I'm coming enough so that people are not surprised to see me in the office because I'm there rare enough that I feel the need to be like, hey, just so y'all know, I'm in the office these dates out of this month. And so people know.
Isn't it a little bit heartbreaking when well, maybe it's just me. I do that and there's like 2 people in and both of those people had
yes,
no idea.
It 100% feels like just a gut punch. Yep.
Yeah. Way to show up.
I prefer not to tell people so they can't hide their disappointment when they see me. Oh, great. Why are you here?
Sound strategy. Anyway, in today's episode, Google is finally killing cookies. So now what? Can Google continue their search dominance? Americans canceling more of their streaming services? Apple's mixed reality headset? Peloton's content hub on TikTok? And how one kid just completed Tetris for the first time. That's why it's a big deal. That's why it's a big deal. Join me for this episode. We have 3 people all on the digital advertising and media desk. You're all the same title too. All senior analysts. All senior analysts. We start with Evelyn Mitchell-Wolfe, based in Virginia.
Hello, everyone. Nice to see you.
Hello there. We're also joined by Max Willens, who's typically based in Philadelphia, but is coming to us live-ish from our New York studio.
Yo.
And finally, we have Ross Benish, based just above New York City.
Howdy, Marcus.
Hey, chap. Some very weird introductions, but very on brand. So, what do we have in store for you? We have the story of the week. Google is finally killing cookies. Supposedly, probably, maybe, should be. So now what? We then move to a brand new segment. So I won't tell you about that till a little bit later in the show. Cliffhanger. And then we end with dinner party. That is not really that suspenseful. Just you'll figure it out later. Dinner party data is how we wrap up the episode with some random trivia. But of course, we start with the story of the week. So Google is finally killing cookies. Now what? Miles Krupa and Patience Hagan of the Wall Street Journal. As of last week, Google started a limited test that restricts cookies for 1% of the people who use its Chrome browser. It's the world's most popular. That 1% is 30 million people, though. So it's a lot of folks. By the end of the year, Google plans to get rid of cookies for all Chrome using folks. Cookies are those things that track us across the internet so that advertisers can target us with ads. The problem is the industry is nowhere near ready, according to a lot of folks, but specifically Anthony Katzer, chief executive of the IAB Tech Lab. So I'll let you all pile in because you're all on this very digital advertising and media desk. But what are you all paying most attention to when it comes to cookies going away this year?
Well, it'll be interesting to see if Google pays much attention to the complaints of ad industry lobbyists. You know, you mentioned the IAB Tech Lab says that advertisers aren't ready, that the timing remains poor, that they need more time. Google's already delayed this a few times. You know, will they pay more attention to that, or will they, you know, take the consumer side and the regulatory issues and go ahead and push this thing forward?
There's one of the lines in this article. Other ad executives said Google's schedule hasn't given the industry enough time to prepare. I mean, they kind of brought up in 2020. It seems like they've had years, but it's a big deal. Does that sound like a fair criticism in your opinion?
I guess I would say it does depend on which kind of stakeholder group you're most aligned with. But I think it's fair to say that, you know, one could argue that we need more time to get back to parity with what the industry was used to. So Raptive, which is a large ad monetization services provider to publishers, had some really early data that they unveiled dating back to last Thursday. And based on the numbers out of the chute, the non-cookied Chrome users are monetizing 30% at a 30% lower rate than cookied users are, which, you know, I don't know of a whole lot of CROs that would be pleased with that kind of a drop. That's better than the drop between or the delta between a cookied Chrome user and a user on Safari, for example. But that's largely, I think, a vestige of how little interest there is in those audiences because they're not cookied. But I think that, I would sort of take a slightly different version of Ross's same point and say, I'm really curious to see if the Competition Markets Authority in the UK, which is kind of the one essentially holding Google to account here, if they are receptive to the arguments by people like Tony Katzer or the folks at Raptive or any of the other, kind of ad tech stakeholders who have, yelled and screamed that everything in the privacy sandbox isn't cutting it. The Trade Desk dropped out of it a couple of weeks ago. So I'm just really interested to see whether the CMA is sort of moved by the calls for a further delay in this process.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the CMA is also one of the big things that I'm watching as the cookieless journey continues to unfold. Apologize, that was a very like Bachelor-esque way of saying that, our journey with cookies here. But I think personally, I think that, there's always a chance that Google's target deprecation date could shift again, but I think it's very unlikely unless the CMA intervenes and deems one or more privacy sandbox solutions insufficient. But as far as whether there is enough time left in this timeline toward cookie deprecation, I think there is definitely a valid argument because only now with this 1% cookie deprecation, only now is there an actually cookieless testing environment. All of the tests up until this point have had to employ cookies in some way, shape, or form because cookies were still a massive part of the ecosystem, and they still are a massive part of the ecosystem. The scale of it is a problem still. So whether results are statistically significant is another kind of thing that can come into play here. There's a lot going on. And so I do think there is an argument that there should be more time between when there is some cookie deprecation and when full deprecation occurs. But to Max and Ross's points, the industry has had years, literally years, to prepare for this, at least in terms of putting their feelers out, understanding what solutions are out there and what the pros and cons are, what their first-party data assets are, how it all fits together. There's only so much more that more time can do on that front.
One thing that I'm also really interested in watching as this kind of unfolds is that when Google first made this announcement, there was kind of one of the sort of cynical arguments about whether this would happen or how it would happen was, where else is this money going to go? And since then, we've had retail media become immensely important and immensely, popular among marketers. And, I would say that there's a healthy, if you were to do a Venn diagram of sort of, what retail media inventory can do and what, open web display inventory can do, like there's quite a lot in both circles that doesn't touch, but there's enough in the middle that I think if you were, say a CPG brand, for example, you might just say, you know what, this is too effing complicated. Let's just pour more money into Walmart Connect or into Amazon or into Instacart and just see if that, replaces and delivers comparable value. And so I think that watching to see whether something like that happens could very much be worth some folks' while.
I'm curious to see how this plays out throughout the year, because it does seem as though there's a bit of a, if it ain't broke yet, don't fix it / try something else mentality here. Because some data to back that up. So according to 33 Across, cookies were used for nearly 80% of or more of programmatic ad buys across industries as of late Q3 2023, with many advertisers increasing their cookie ad spend. Because it's still a thing. So why would you be switch over or get ready to switch over or be as prepared as you need to be when it's continuing to be a thing? And Evelyn, to your point, we've seen the can get kicked down the road so much, people are maybe anticipating or hoping that happens again. How do you think this does play out in 2024? Is it all of a sudden, the day before everyone's panicking and it's kind of kind of GDPR, if that's anything to go by, or do you see people actually going to be relatively prepared for when this happens?
Evelyn has a report about this coming out, or maybe it's already out.
Oh,
are we talking about the H1 report?
whatever report. I think that's the one that I just read.
There's a lot of reports on this.
Yeah.
The one that Ross is talking about, I think, is the H1 2024 programmatic ad spending forecast report. Don't quote me on the exact title. Can't off the top of my head. I can't remember what it's called, but this is the biggest thing that's happening in the programmatic ecosystem and the digital advertising ecosystem in a long time. And I think there's going to be a fair amount of chaos. I do think, some brands have spent the past couple of years preparing. So there's it's a mixed bag as to how prepared an individual brand is. The smaller the brand, the less likely they are to be sufficiently prepared because they just don't have the resources to be testing really thoroughly, to be putting dollars into unproven solutions. They just don't have that luxury. But I do think that, like GDPR and similar kinds of interventions in the status quo, there is going to be a lot of discombobulation, a lot of trial and error, a lot of confusion, and a good bit of the long tail of advertisers just waiting for everyone else to figure it out before they switch over until the clock runs out, and then it's just kind of
right. Final question here. Are we surprised that the ban or the deprecation of cookies is taking place in Q3, in the quarter literally before Q4, which is peak ad season? Are you surprised that they didn't get rid of them in Q1 or Q2 when things are a little bit calmer for advertisers?
No.
I guess it makes nice sense to just cleave it at the end of the year. But
okay.
Practically, that will cause some disruption.
All right, that's all we've got time for the story of the week. Time now for the analysis of the week. And today we've got a brand new segment. It's called Move the Needle out of 10. I'd say we're working on the name, but we're not. That's the best we've got. Where I read out 4 stories and our contestants have to tell us how much each story moves the needle. The needle will change based on the story out of 10 and why. So 4 stories. We start with the first one, and we'll start with Evelyn. We're talking about Google's search dominance. Is this the beginning of the end for Google's dominance in search? Questions Greta Suarez of Quartz, writing that the tech giant's market share is being challenged by an increasingly crowded field. She does point out that in October, Google held 92% of the worldwide search market, according to StatCounter, but that is down slightly year on year, but not much considering ChatGPT was introduced and generative AI models have been increasing usage. Microsoft's Bing, their market share was at 3%. And Russian search engine Yandex held about 2%, overtaking Yahoo last April to take an extremely distant 3rd place. So Google is way out in front. But the question is, how much will Google's search dominance get challenged by 2025 out of 10? Evelyn?
I'm going to give 2 answers. One
okay.
for...
So you're playing the game, right? Go on.
Well, because I feel like we have to take into account the historic antitrust trial that the Department of Justice brought against
3D chess.
Google.
I see what you're doing.
Yeah, because I mean, the implications of that ruling are potentially enormous, depending on which party wins, and also then if the DOJ wins, what remedy the judge chooses to move forward with. So that's a lot of kind of up in the air, and we should know at least what ruling we're dealing with by, I think, the somewhere around May of this year. So all that is said, though, I think if the judge rules in favor of Google, I will say that the needle will be moved 3 out of 10. And I'm grading on a curve here based on the heyday of the late 2010s when I would have given it a 0. So, and this is also excluding retail media, which has been gaining share of our search ad spending forecast, but is excluded from the analysis in the piece that you just mentioned. And, the way that most regular folks think about the search market is in search engines. So I'm throwing the retailers out of here. But so 3 is if Google wins the trial. And if the DOJ wins the trial, I'd say more like 6 or 7.
Wow, 6 or 7. Okay, so 6 or 7 in terms of how much Google's search dominance will get challenged by 2025, or 3 if they win the case. Max?
Yeah, I think Evelyn's point about the wrinkle of the DOJ cases is really on point. I basically presumed that Google is going to win, and consequently, I also gave it a 3. I think the one thing that you might have pointed to if we were doing this last year would have been, as Satya Nadella put it, Microsoft made Google dance by unloading ChatGPT on the world. Except now Google is at the dance, and they have Bard, and even though Google does not have a great track record of introducing and scaling products that are, super different from search. I haven't seen enough either in the user experience or in just kind of general consumer behavior to feel like the advent of Gen AI is going to radically shake or disrupt the balance of power here. So
Okay.
I give them a 3.
Ross.
So if I follow this structure that the other two analysts have set up, I'm going to go with a 2 out of 10. If Google wins, I think they just keep trucking along. Amazon's taking some search market and so are some other players, but you're still going to see most ad dollars going toward Google. But if Google lost, give it an 8 of 10 because they can be
Wow.
broken up like Standard Oil, and that would be a huge change in the search market. Now, having a range of 2 out of 10 to 8 out of 10, you could say my response is meaningless.
Well, no, because it's not it's 2 scenarios. So, right, so it can't
Yeah.
be like a 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But no, very good. There's very good context because we do have a lot going on with regards to
But that
Google.
8 out of 10, though, I guess that wouldn't happen necessarily like within the next 12 months, like you were asking. That's like
Right.
an eventual thing,
Yeah.
Well, by 2025, yeah, it could be the end of 2025.
Yeah, I
but
think
yes, even then.
even if the DOJ would unroll it out, I mean, you probably wouldn't really see an effect in the ad market significantly to like the next year, I would think.
Yeah, and the search business is so core to everything that Google does. I would not be surprised if it took years and years to unravel this behemoth of a company and spit search out on its own.
Okay, so what you're saying is it was a terrible question. All right, the segment's off to a great start. Let's move to story 2 in hopes of improving slightly. It's a low bar. We'll start with Max. Americans canceling more of their streaming services. Hulu, Netflix, and others are turning to bundles, discounts, and ad-supported plans as customer defections rise, writes Sarah Kraus of the Wall Street Journal. 2 supporting data points here. 1, customer defections across premium streaming services rose to 6.3% in November from 5.1 a year prior. And number 2, the share of US subscribers to major streaming services who have cancelled at least 3 of them over the past 2 years. Share of US subscribers to major streaming services who have cancelled at least 3 of them in the past 2 years. That share leapt from 10% of people doing that to 25% from 2021 to 2023, according to November data from Antenna. But Max, how much do you expect streamers to move to ad-supported video services out of 10, and why?
So I'm going to go with 3 out of 10, primarily because that same article included data from Netflix, which said that 31% of their new customer subscribers opted for an ad-supported tier, which is basically 3 in 10. Netflix has an outsized role in this market. They essentially make the rules for and set customer expectations. And so I think that's basically the prism that I looked at this through. I would also just say, kind of as an aside, that I think it's kind of galling how many of these services have, instead of essentially offering a cheaper tier, they are basically just changing the rules on everybody. So Amazon, for example, in about 2 weeks, 3 weeks, is going to make me give them even more money every month because I don't want to look at ads while I watch their increasingly subpar streaming video content.
Ooh, shots fired.
Sorry, Amazon. It might be true.
My spin-off streaming content review podcast is coming in Q2 of 2024. No, but yeah, 3 out of 10. Sorry, I've talked too much. 3 out of 10.
You're good, Ross.
I'm gonna give it a 6.5 out of 10 for very specific. Well, actually, more specific would be 6.53. But
that would be too much. Yeah,
that'd be too much. I've gone too far. Let's just go 6.5. So what Max was saying, Amazon is putting ads on by default. That's going to be annoying for consumers, but it does push more people to ad supported. So Netflix is obviously like the king in this space. That's why like I would never give this like a 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10, because most Netflix subscribers are still going to not have ads. But the move by Amazon, as well as Netflix introducing advertising relatively recently, makes me give this a mark above 5.
Okay, Evelyn.
I am going to say 6, mostly because Ross really convinced me there, and I was on the fence to begin with.
Okay, that's not
But
really
also-
the point of the segment.
I had 6 to begin with, but I was, after
Okay.
Max spoke, I was like, maybe I should kind of back off. But no, I think 6 is right. And I'm going to bring it back to the Google trial again, because we have just heard a ton of testimony about why defaults are really powerful. And if Amazon just defaults all of their Prime Video customers to ad supported, which is the plan as of now, then the majority of people are going to stay with that default, the ad supported default, and not pay more to avoid ads.
All right, very good. I'm taking notes because it's the first time we're doing this segment as we go. My first note is
By the way,
write
I think
better
Evelyn called me
questions.
an influencer. She said I
No,
I changed
that's
her
not.
mind. So
That's a leap. Okay, let's move to story 3. Let's start with Ross. Apple's mixed reality headset. After revealing its long-awaited VR headset last June, Apple is ready to put the $3,500 Vision Pro on sale, notes Emma Roth of The Verge. The device lets you switch between AR and VR using a dial on the side of the headset, so mixed reality, and folks can also navigate the device without a controller using eye, head, and hand tracking. But Ross, how much do you expect Apple's new headset to move the mixed reality needle out of 10?
2 out of 10. I know Apple is a big consumer products company that most of their products are successful, but VR, going back to Nintendo's Virtual Boy, has been a very tough sell all the way through Facebook's Oculus. So I think this will be Apple's Virtual Boy.
Whoa,
Then-
what a sentence.
I don't get most of Ross's references, but I definitely don't get that
It's
one.
a 90s
Price is Right one earlier.
video
Go on.
game console that everything was red in 3D and you had to like look into it and it made your head hurt after like 45 minutes. Nintendo lost a lot of money.
Okay, Max knows. Evelyn, you also? Just me. Oh no, you're with me. Okay, that's rare for someone else.
All
to
right, I'm going
also-
to send you a link to Virtual Boy and Plinko after this.
down to the list. Evelyn.
I am going to say 4 because based on reviews of demos of the Vision Pro, it sounds like it's a game-changing piece of tech, but the price is just too high. Victoria, please insert "in this economy" meme right here. Because we were just talking about people canceling their streaming subscriptions. Very few people are going to drop $3,500 on this when they already drop well over $1,000 on their iPhones.
Wait, hang on. Is that a meme? I say that.
Yeah, it is a meme.
I came up with that, didn't I?
Oh,
Did I come up
then-
with the meme?
Marcus, that
You
would
did
make
not.
you an influencer too.
I am. What do you mean would make? Am kind of. I'm low key famous, as my friends call me.
Nano
They're being
influencer.
very generous. I'm not famous at all. Ross. No, you went already.
Max.
Don't you dare go again. Max.
I'm gonna give this 0.3499, which is the
Oh
price
my
of it.
goodness.
But I know. Listen,
Oh, I see what you've done. I'll take it. Well
There
played.
you
Well
go.
played. Brought it back.
I mean, it's basically I invoke the price because, as Evelyn said, it's too damn expensive. And iPhones, and other devices like it benefit enormously from the financing options available and offered by wireless companies. And I just don't see T-Mobile or Verizon saying, you can finance a Vision Pro on us because it doesn't affect their business models at all. Ultimately, this is going to be like a lot of Apple devices, and that it deepens the commitment people have to other products in its ecosystem. So I think the most impressive kind of element of this thing's capabilities right now is the FaceTime capability. So just kind of imagine feeling like the person you're FaceTiming with is not inside of a tiny box, but is literally across a table from you. That's
Mhm.
very cool. It is not going to make me spend $3,500 to buy one, but yeah, so
there is
0
a
point.
precedent in this. I went to the Wikipedia page for Virtual Boy, and it says its failure has been attributed to its high price. So
There you go.
It's just history going around again.
Type of qualitative analysis.
Quality research
Is-
from reading Wikipedia during a podcast.
Was it called Virtual Boy because of the Game Boy?
I think they were going for that, but it was the first system that was 3D rather than like a 2D scroller. So it was virtual, like it was supposed to be like virtual reality. There's a virtual reality craze like in the early 90s. You know, movies like Lawnmower Man, they're trying to like go on that. I don't know if you remember that at all.
I just, I feel like virtual person would be really inclusive for the
Oh, you're
ladies.
talking about the gender. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
Game Boy.
Yeah.
What's weird about that is Game Boy had more female users than other Nintendo systems. I think it was like 40% of Game Boy users, at least when they released the Pokemon games, were female users, but yet it was called Game Boy. Like that should have been Game Person more
Boo.
than any gaming
Oh.
system. Whereas like
These-
a PlayStation probably had like a 70-30 or a 80-20 split.
These are good points. I have to rename this segment again to tangential trivia.
I think Marcus, you can just
You do make
you
a
can
good
just
point, Laura.
you can put that at the end of the episode, so anyone that
Yeah,
wants
you can
to
cut
see
everything
it.
I've said about
We
Virtual
have
Boy.
to
if
cut
you want.
most of this segment. We just cut the whole segment. It could be one big outtake.
Just leave it
Um,
with Ross saying it. History repeats itself over and over again.
Yeah.
Just the same thing over and over again.
I did think it was interesting. Quickly going back to mixed reality headset, Apple revealing the pricing for Zeiss prescription lenses that users can get with it. I think it's an extra couple of $100. Are people going to want to pay that as well as $3,500? This is more for the developers. The price will obviously come down. But I did think that was an interesting solve because we've been talking for a long time about the fact that people wear glasses. Are they going to want to put a VR headset on top of them? And this seems like maybe you pop in and out a prescription lens
Oh my
at some point
God.
down the road.
No,
Potentially.
it just made me feel
Oh.
I just have big feelings about needing to wear glasses because they're so expensive, but I didn't choose this. I did not choose to be
That's
nearly
true.
blind. And I really feel like if you, vision should be a public commodity. I won't go any deeper than that. Mic
What?
drop.
Where have we landed here? Let's move to story 4.
We're going to
Signals all over the
nationalize the
place.
eyeglass industry.
So derailed. Story 4. Peloton Content Hub on TikTok. The fitness company has formed an exclusive partnership with TikTok to create a workout content hub on the short form video platform. Dean Seal of the Journal says Peloton noted this is the first time it will produce custom social content for a partner that is outside of its own owned channels, with content including live Peloton classes, class clips, original instructor series, celebrity collaborations, and ongoing creator partnerships. We start with Evelyn again. How much will this deal move the needle for Peloton and then also for TikTok, both out of 10?
You're just throwing an extra question in there. Okay, for Peloton, for Peloton, I'm gonna say like maybe 2, probably more like a 1. I think it's a step in the right direction. I know there's a cult following of people that have bikes and regularly attend classes, but it takes a lot of money and physical space to have a bike at home. So ramping up the side of the business that requires less investment and less equipment in a home gym is a good idea. And I think TikTok's a good choice for Peloton. I just don't expect this to make waves because there's already a ton of fitness content on TikTok and social media. And then on the flip side, I think it's probably like a 1 for TikTok too, because there is already plenty of fitness content there. It's not like they're hurting for it.
Mm-hmm. Max.
Yeah, I give this 1s to both sides. In a way, this is sort of, and that's kind of like throwing Peloton a bone. They have nowhere to go but up. At the end of 2020, they were trading at $155 a share. They're down to $6. I guess this will kind of keep them at the front of the, brains of their next generation of buyers, but their core product is too expensive for most of TikTok's users. There's a sea of fitness content on the platform already, as Evelyn said, and I am not high on this.
Ross.
3 out of 10 for Peloton. It's a nice, easy marketing tactic for them, but it's not going to fix their core business issues. For TikTok, 1 out of 10. It doesn't hurt them at all. It's just in the vast amount of content that's on TikTok, this will be like pretty small potatoes.
Okay.
I love potatoes.
Okay.
Well, hot potatoes can be big potatoes, and this ain't big potatoes. Small potatoes.
Any other food related?
Nothing's coming to mind right now.
Food
This
related
take is
commentary.
feeling like a sack of potatoes. It's
Yeah.
just dead and heavy and
God. All right, that's it for the segment. It's likely the last time you'll see that segment. You'll be pleased to know.
We killed it.
You killed it. You killed it dead.
Nailed it.
Poochie on the Simpsons with the. You remember that episode? Itchy and Scratchy.
No.
They introduced Poochie. He lasts for like one episode.
Oh
Put it
yeah.
down on the list of things you have to explain.
I don't know that one either.
All right, I'll write these down.
To the growing list of things I'm unaware
Got
of.
an email coming after this.
Victoria's shaking her head. She knows how culturally out of touch I am, but this has
Simpsons.
reached a whole new level. Simpsons I know of and have seen, but not that episode.
There
all
are
right.
so many Simpsons episodes. It's just
Yeah,
mind-boggling.
about 700.
Incorrect.
Yeah.
There are 5 good seasons of it. The rest of it you can ignore.
Oh,
Oh.
okay. Is this
Okay.
going to be on your podcast?
Yes, absolutely. The deep dive into what you should and should not watch on Disney Plus. will last.
Everyone who's given up on listening to this show can go find Matt's podcast. All right, folks, it's time now for dinner party data. We made it. The part of the show where we tell you about the most interesting thing we've learned this week. And we start with Ross for no reason at all.
So it's been almost 700 days since Central Park in New York City has had over 1 inch of snow. And the previous record,
Wow.
so that's a record. That's a long time. It's almost 2 years. The previous record was only 383 days set in 1998. So young kids living in Manhattan are going a crazy amount of time without getting any snow.
I
That's
thought you were
sad.
going to take a second to do the math. You're like, 700 days, that means... Seconds, 1 second. 2 years. That's nearly 2 years. You nailed that fast math, Ross. You crushed it. That's fascinating. Over 1 inch.
Yeah, it's not much. And I
That's
bring that up
anything,
because
yeah.
there was just a storm that blew through the area. Upstate New York, parts of Jersey, Connecticut all got snow, but Manhattan didn't get much.
Nothing.
Yeah, I mean, with how gross snow gets, like immediately upon touching the ground in Manhattan, I don't know. It's like I'm sad for the kids, but also,
A lot of shoes have been saved.
yeah.
Thank goodness. Very nice. Next up, Evelyn.
Okay, so I have some data from YouGov that was the survey was fielded end of September, early October of last year. What fashion trends do Americans love and hate? And I'm hoping that I will get some really enthusiastic
I couldn't name
reactions from you two here. So
one. Look how I'm
um,
dressed.
well, you might be pleased to know that that Americans'
Black
top
on
most
black.
loved fashion trend is flannel shirts,
Black on black.
and
Oh,
graphic tees,
okay.
bomber jackets.
I own a flannel. Oh,
Yeah, so I mean, I feel like the top 3 are pretty solid, and leggings are number 4, which personally, I'm into leggings. And then the least most liked, so the most hated, are shoulder pads, parachute pants, and
shoulder
then
pads.
sagging pants is the least liked fashion trend.
Oh, yeah, not since the 90s.
I feel like
Yeah.
I see a lot of that out in the wild, though. I was stunned to see. You guys know what UFOs are? Since we're talking about obscure references, the pants.
Oh,
no.
I-
They were like
Aliens,
a.
yes.
It was like a New York streetwear
Pants.
brand from the 90s. They had these really funny bits of cloth that you would like pull out of the pockets. They looked like things you could like, tie things to. People would like tie people to the poles of subway cars to be jerks. It was fun. Also
Yeah, I
starting
did-
to feel bad that I allowed my mother to throw out my Jenkos. I'm just kidding. I don't feel bad about that at all. But
None of us do. Max, you're up.
all right, so I started the year full of hope, like so many of you, and so I started thinking about stuff that reasons to be optimistic, reasons to be excited about the future, and it drew me to the topic of fusion, which I think about all the time, and which the kind of preceding joke apparently in the scientific community is that fusion is basically 30 years away from being 30 years away, and that's always been kind of the joke about it. But a bunch of stuff has happened in the last year that is making people feel like this might not just be a theoretical exercise. So last year, a research group achieved basically a net positive fusion reaction, meaning that they were able to generate more power than it took to initiate the reaction in the first place. And since that's happened, a ton of venture capital has poured into this space. So there are about over 40 different fusion startups out in the wild, and last year 14 of them raised money to the tune of over $2.5 billion. One of which, called Helion, is building a reactor power plant prototype that they again also hope will generate a net positive reaction. They claim that they're going to have a fusion power plant up and running by 2028. A lot of scientists think that's ridiculous. I hope that they are wrong about it being ridiculous. The general consensus, according to an article I read in the MIT Tech Review, is that it's probably closer to 2040 before we get fusion power as an option. But, you know, just to find some kind of balm to apply to my, you know, brain and heart after reading stories about climate change, stories about fossil fuels, stories about waste. It's nice to imagine that we might, you know, MacGyver ourselves a solution to the problems that we're creating for ourselves. So
When Max started talking, if anyone else Googled what is fusion, you're not alone. Okay. That's now in my search history. Secondly,
It took me a minute.
Max,
It took me a minute to understand you meant nuclear fusion. Yes.
it was
I
also
had
a
no
cool
idea.
restaurant in the 90s on
That's what I thought
Great
you were
Jones
going for.
Street. No, I'm sorry. Yes, nuclear fusion power.
Okay. Secondly, start of the new year, your first thought is fusion. This is the year. Not, you know, like, can I not drink for a week? Or something like a regular, like, New Year's resolution. That's where your mind is?
I'm going
Like-
big, baby.
I know. Someone has to.
Big.
Very
Well,
nice.
Oppenheimer did just win a bunch of awards. Maybe you
Oh,
were
there we
just
go.
in the nuclear headspace.
It's true. That movie, I think that movie rules. Tune in
never
to my
actually saw it.
podcast. Oh, you totally have to.
People will have some spare time when they stop listening to this one. All right, I've got one. I still need to see that film, though. One for you real quick. Completing Tetris. Did you guys see this story? Max did, Evelyn didn't. Some of you may have, some of you might not have. So, Soviet software engineer Alexei Pajitnov created Tetris in 1985. That wasn't the story I was reading, but just for context, it was released by Nintendo 4 years later. You guys have probably heard of Tetris. Big deal. According to Tetris, according to the Tetris company, over 500 million units of Tetris have been sold worldwide, which makes it one of the top-selling games of all time. And a few weeks ago, this is the story, 13-year-old Willis Gibson of Oklahoma became the first person believed to ever beat the original Nintendo version of Tetris. As Dibba, Mohtasham of NPR explains, probably still got that wrong, even after taking a few seconds, apologies. 38 years after Tetris was released, Gibson ended up advancing so far that the game itself could not keep up with him. And at level 157, he reached the notorious kill screen, the point in the game where it becomes unplayable because of limitations with the game's original programming. It took him less than 39 minutes from when he started the game to playing this particular stint to completing, to crashing the game. There's a YouTube video of him, which will, if we can, we'll put a link in the show notes because it's amazing. YouTube video, you have to watch the whole 40-minute video. Fast forward towards the end. The YouTube video showing him beating the game, he freezes in shock and then says, "I can't even tell my mum because she's at work." It's pretty damn heartwarming. Yeah, his score on the screen read that he'd maxed out. There's a maxed out figure of 999,999, but Gibson says his actual final score was 6.8 million. How big of a deal of this? How big of a deal is this? Up until now, only AI had been attributed with reaching the kill screen. For context, Gibson has played in tournaments since 2021, and in October, he was the youngest person to make it to the Classic Tetris World Championship, where he placed third. He's been playing since he was 11 years old. He's now 13, plays about 3 to 5 hours a day. And this is the best part of it. It's really amazing. He dedicated the record-setting win to his father, Adam Gibson, who died last month.
Oh,
I just thought this was such a nice story. I mean, there's the dedication to his father, which is just beautiful. But then also there's that kind of anything's possible moment, right? Like everyone's played at least one arcade video game. The idea of completing it doesn't ever like cross your mind. And now it can, or really like doing anything. And I just thought this was a really special moment. Great story. Anyway, that's
Attaboy,
all the time
Willis.
for this episode. Indeed. Congratulations to you. And a huge thank you to my guests today. Thank you to Ross.
Thanks, Marcus.
Thank you to Evelyn.
Thank you, Marcus. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you to Max.
Always a pleasure, Marcus. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. Thank you to Victoria, who edits the show, James, who copy edits it, Stuart, who runs the team, Sophie, who does our social media, and Lance, who runs our video podcast. Thanks to everyone for listening in. We'll see you hopefully on Tuesday for the Behind the Numbers Daily and eMarketer podcast. Happy long MLK weekends.